This is a figure I've been waiting a long time for. I've thought about the idea of this figure on and off for over a decade, wondering if it will ever be made, wondering why it hadn't been made. And now that it's here, I have to say, they did not disappoint. Ladies, gentlemen, and those who don't go by either, this is the Buzzmod 1/12 scale Matoi Ryuko. So I don't think it'll be any surprise when I say I'm a fan of Kill-la-Kill, right? I mean, I'm not really hiding it in the slightest. The series released back when I was in high school, and upon watching the first episode, I was pretty much hooked. Its characters, the over-the-top action, incredible music, and fun story were something I just couldn't get enough of. After each episode, I would spend the next week just waiting for the next one to come out. I was obsessed with it. And as you'd probably expect, Ryuko is my favorite character. Maybe that's main character bias, I don't know, and I don't really care. She was both cool and cute. I love her dynamic with the cast and the journey she goes through. She's just my favorite in the whole show. Also, I had a crush on her, but we don't really need to talk about that. And as you'd expect, I have my fair share of merchandise. I'm still trying to get the Blu-ray release, but I do have the manga adaptation and the game Kill-la-Kill If, both physically and digitally. I even have replicas of the scissor blades, and no, these aren't foam, they're actual metal. Ironically though, I don't have much when it comes to figures. I have one of the Good Smile statues, and that's it. I don't have any of the other ones, nor the Nendroids, or any of the 1/6 scale real action hero figures. But I do have both the Hello Good Smile and Figma versions of Mako and Ryuko. Satsuki and her iterations are eluding me at the moment. And for a while I was content with this. After all, the show ended in 2014, and expecting it to get the same levels of merch as series much bigger than it just wasn't realistic. I figured these two and the Satsuki would be the only 1/12 scale action figures Kill-la-Kill would get, and that was something I just had to accept. But as time went on, I couldn't help but wonder why they didn't do more. Why not make figures of the Elite Four? Why not make figures of Ragyo or Nui? Not helped by the fact that some of these characters did get garage kits that, man, I wish became more largely available. But most of all, why didn't Ryuko and Satsuki get figures of their regular attires? Those seem like easy moneymakers right there, but they were never done. Well, as far as Satsuki is concerned, we may still be waiting, but in 2024, Buzzmod showed off a prototype of their new figure of Ryuko in her standard outfit. Finally, that hypothetical was actually reality, and over a year later, here we are. Now, I haven't handled any of Buzzmod's previous figures, though I have been meaning to for some time. But from what I've seen, while their customer service is allegedly not the best, they do make good quality stuff, and as the title and opening give away, I think they did an amazing job here. I'm calling it now, not only is Ryuko making my top 10 for this year, she'll probably take the #1 spot, though I won't deny there's a lot of bias there. But enough preamble, you didn't come here just to hear me talk about my feelings and history with the series in general. Unless you did, in which case thanks, I appreciate that. But most of you came here because you want to hear exactly what makes this figure so great. So let's not waste any more time and get started. So before we really get into it, let's talk about this jacket here. The Buzzmod figure comes with two different upper torsos, one with the jacket and one without. Not only that, but there's also the case Ryuko carried her half of the scissor blade in. She can carry it as expected, but I would suggest putting it on after you get the pose you want. The connection isn't bad by any means, but it won't hold up to constant movement. So figure out what pose you want and then put it on. Both look great with printing that's actually better than the pop-up parade figure I have. She can also put her hands in her pockets, and by that I mean you take off her hands and put the wrist pegs in a position that makes it look like she has her hand in her pockets. As you can guess, I really like this. It adds a nice extra bit of personality to the figure. Just make sure not to lose this part on her left wrist as it completes the look of her glove. As much as I like all of this though, I think it's more appropriate to not have Senketsu covered up. So let's do a quick swap to the other torso. Nothing complicated here, just take out the chest, put in the other one, and transfer the hands and head onto it. With that out of the way, God damn, this figure looks amazing! This is the spitting image of Tsushio's designs. Every detail is accounted for, from the lightning bolts on the shoes to the bunching of the sleeves. If you can think of it, odds are it's here. Paintwork is also top-notch. There's no paint splotches or chipping to be seen anywhere. Unsurprisingly, the quality shines the most in the face sculpt, and what an amazing face sculpt it is! I feel like this really puts into perspective how far we come in terms of printing and sculpting. And the easiest way to see that is by comparing Buzzmod Ryuko with the Figma Ryuko. Now the face sculpts on the Figma are by no means bad, they are very good. But the more I look at it, the more there are little things that don't seem to be right. The shape of the eyes is a bit softer than it should be, the smirk feels a bit fuzzy and not properly defined, and this is true of the other face sculpts to varying degrees. None are bad by a long shot, but there are little things here and there that feel a bit off. Then we bring in the Buzzmod figure and the improvements become very apparent. The smirk is now quintessentially Ryuko. Not only are the eyes the correct shape, but the improvements in printing mean the details are much more sharp and clearer than on the Figma. Once again, this is also true of the other face sculpts, but we'll get to those with the rest of the accessories. Because right now I need to praise the decision of giving Ryuko a soft goods skirt. Plastic skirts are always a tricky thing due to how they can easily traffic cone the legs. Sometimes it's okay since the designers thought of ways to accommodate it, other times it can be cumbersome but manageable, and other times you're left wondering if the team working on this figure was actively taking the piss. I should really get around to talking about you. Another time, perhaps. But here, with this glorious soft goods skirt, we don't have to worry about any of that, as it not only looks fantastic, but it doesn't impede leg articulation at all, allowing for a full range of motion. Speaking of, the articulation may not be doing anything you haven't seen before, but that doesn't mean it isn't fantastic. We may not have any double joints at the elbows and knees, but they still get well over 90 degrees, along with the expected swivels at both the elbows and thighs. Well, okay, the actual swivel point at the arms is higher up at the shoulder, but you generally get the same effect of an actual bicep swivel. The shoes can also swivel via ball joint, tilt up and very far down, and have an excellent pivot alongside an out-of-the-box very tight toe joint. In fact, the right toe joint on my copy I think is stuck. A bad case of QC since my first copy was just fine. Yes, I said first copy. For those who don't know, I meant to have this video out back in January, but had to delay it due to accidentally breaking one of the ankle joints. I had to spend time getting a replacement copy. I want to stress that this break was my fault. I simply put too much pressure onto the joint, but regardless, I feel I should recommend some caution when handling them. From what I've seen, no one else has had this happen to them, so just be a bit careful and you should be good. Moving on, the hips could have had a bit better side movement, but are otherwise great. The torso gets good range, as do the shoulders and head, but I should note that the head and torso will be a bit more limited when using the jacket versus not. But needless to say, Ryuko isn't going to be having much trouble getting into various poses. She may not have the most extreme articulation, but that isn't really a hindrance in the slightest. Now you may have noticed that the thigh swivel is actually much more visible here compared to figures at a similar price point. That's because there's technically one extra part of the posing I haven't mentioned, so let's get into it with the accessories. Ryuko comes with alternate legs with a more extreme knee bend in them. Swapping them on is pretty simple. Remove the shoes, then the rest of the leg at said thigh swivel, and finally remove the hip itself. Then you just put the alternate leg into place and plug the shoe in. It's an interesting idea and can absolutely help with some poses. For example, if you wanted Ryuko to be squatting, you can do that with normal legs, but it doesn't work the best. But with these alternate ones, it works far better. Obviously, I would have preferred the regular articulation to be able to do this, but I appreciate the option being there so I can still get a pose like this in some form or fashion. As mentioned earlier, we have an alternate upper torso and case. We also have a nice standard layout of hands, 2 different styles of fists from the default ones, alongside relaxed, spread, and gripping hands, the latter of which leading us straight into the iconic scissor blade. It comes in both its standard and decapitation modes, looking very nice. Interestingly, it's also a darker red than the Figma versions. Not entirely sure which is more accurate given the blade can sometimes look brighter or darker depending on the scene, but neither look bad to me. When it comes to holding the blade, the standard one can be held in the hand just fine, but you'll definitely need to use both hands for the decapitation mode version. The wrist joints just can't support it individually. Finally, we come to the face sculpts, and like the default one, they are beautiful. There's so much personality coming from each one. My personal favorite being the smiling face. It's just so nice, especially when you bring in the Figma Mako. Oh, look at them! They look so good together! Especially since they scale near perfectly. At 13.5 centimeters, Ryuko fits nicely into the true 1/12 scale of lines like Figma and SH Figuarts. And while smaller, I think you can get it to work with slightly larger lines like Marvel Legends and Mafex as well. Really, the only thing I can think of will give you pause when it comes to getting this figure is the price. Now, $105 Canadian on stores like AmiAmi doesn't sound that bad, but then you have to take into account shipping and potential import fees, and that's not even getting into the whole tariff situation, and that price starts to get really high. Be careful on where you buy this figure, but if you can get it at a discounted price, I would 100% say go for it. Personally though, I can't say I regret paying the full price. I can even stomach doing it twice after my accidental breakage. Yes, there are problems here. You should be careful with the ankles, and the toe joint being stuck is pretty poor QC, but there's so much good here that outside of the breakage that was my own fault, none of it really changes how I feel. I didn't really think this figure would ever get made, at least not officially. I thought that if I was going to get it, I'd need to commission someone to make a custom, or wait for someone to make an unlicensed version. But not only is it a real, official figure, but it's also an amazing one to boot. From its looks to accessories to articulation, it has it all. I really hope Buzzmod does more Kill la Kill figures in the future. Satsuki in her regular attire and both her and Ryuko in their transformed forms are obvious picks, but I really hope it goes beyond that. To the Elite Four, Mako's family, Ryago and Nui, having a line of Kill la Kill figures would be incredible. But if it doesn't happen though, at least I know that I got this Ryuko. And at least for me, she is perfect. But with all that being said, we're at the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and thanks for waiting so long for this one to come out. I'll see you all in the next one. Later.